So thank you all so much for joining today. My name is Emily Kile. So again, I'm super happy to have Liz Kosloff with us today. She's the Executive Director of Plan of Arizona, which is a local pooled trust, which she'll explain to you because people get very confused about what that might mean. We've worked together quite a bit on a lot of matters that we've had or questions back and forth about benefits and what can you pay for and what can you not pay for out of a special needs trust if the person is receiving benefits. So again, if you have any questions, just type them into the chat box or into the Q&A. We are recording, and so this will be on our YouTube channel as well. So with that, Liz, I'm going to let you take it away. So thank you so much.
Great. Thank you, Emily. So I'm Liz Kosloff, and Plan of Arizona is we're a nonprofit organization, and we serve as trustee of both individual special needs trusts, support trusts, and we also have two pooled trusts. One is a third party, which typically parents will create a trust for a child with a disability. And we also have a self-settled pooled trust. So if someone receives an inheritance or a back payment and it's their own money, they can put that into the self-settled pooled trust. And we also provide wraparound services for our beneficiaries. We have social workers and care providers that can go out and do site visits for the beneficiary. We kind of become a proxy parent. We can take beneficiaries to the doctors, just make sure they're doing okay. We do everything. We sell houses, we move beneficiaries, we bail them out of jail, we buy trailers. So we do a little bit of everything for our beneficiaries. Today, I'm just going to talk mostly about life care planning and the importance of getting things set up so that your loved one with a disability can continue to lead the quality life that they're leading now. And my contact information is right here. Emily is going to post this, so feel free to give me a call after this if you have questions. So the big question, who will take my place when I'm no longer able or available? I also have a sibling with disabilities, and this is the question my mom has asked for years. And she knows that I'll be there to take care, but often there aren't siblings or other family members to take care of the beneficiary. So really thinking about if it's an only child, who or what kind of organization will be there to make sure that they have some support. Currently, these figures are a little old, so I'm not sure if this is the most accurate data, but 65% of people with mental illness live with family members, and 80% of people with developmental disabilities live with families. And that's a little concerning, just in that obviously it's kind of what you would think would be the best place for them to live. But once mom and dad pass away and the disabled person is living at home by themselves, that can create some problems. So again, thinking about planning for the future to make sure that you have a plan in place is super important. Not planning for the future, what will happen if you don't have a plan? Oftentimes we get families, the mom and dad are in their 80s and they haven't done it. Situation when you're, kind of aging out and you're not really sure what you're going to do or what the beneficiary is going to do. Putting it off, unfortunate results of inadequate planning. Oftentimes families don't think about setting up a special needs trust, and they might leave the money directly to the beneficiary, or they leave it to a sibling hoping that that sibling will take care of the beneficiary. And that can create lots of issues like loss of eligibility for government benefits, life decisions made by strangers. We've had parents pass away. We've never met them before. They named us as successor trustee, and we're the one having to step in. We've never met the beneficiary before, and now we're in charge and having to make decisions for them. And that's hard on everybody. Declining quality of life and trauma, fear, and loneliness. It's important for the beneficiary to know that there's a plan in place. It gives them peace of mind.
So Liz, with that said, do you or some of a staff member, if you're named as the trustee in the future, for example, a third party special needs trust that maybe the parents have set up and they've named plan to be the trustee of the special needs trust. Do you have an opportunity then or encourage families to make sure you get a chance to meet the beneficiary and the
Yes.
parents, or you have a questionnaire, or kind of how does that work?
Yeah, so we have a program, it's different for every family member, but when we know, typically we'll be involved if we're going to be named as successor trustee, but not always. So we sit down with the family, we create a plan, we know what's going on, we get documents of all of the family trust, all of the beneficiaries, the important documents are a copy of their SSI, so we know what public, or SSD, whatever public benefits they're on, where they're living, what the situation is. And then what we like to do is meet with the family at least once a year, every other year, so that we can make sure that all of our data is updated. We love to get to know the beneficiary so that we know if something were to happen to mom and dad, we're already in the loop. We already know the siblings, we already know the beneficiary. The beneficiary knows who to call, and there's a comfort level. So we really encourage families when they do create a plan, whether it's with Plan of Arizona or another fiduciary or other family members, make sure that you're meeting at least, every year, preferably every year, especially as you start to, age and things change, every other year, so that you have these group meetings and everybody knows who the other support members are. So we even get involved sometimes while mom and dad are still living, especially for some of our beneficiaries who have mental illness. Sometimes mom and dad they get into their 80s, they're tired, and they're like, hey, can you step in and help now? And that's great because it gives us an opportunity to practice. And then we can go to mom and dad and say, hey, here's what's going on. What do you think we should do in this circumstances? So whether it's being involved with their case manager, if they're in the behavioral health system or through DDD, just being involved and understanding what's going on is super important. And doctors, we have staff that can go to the doctor's appointments and things like that, so that we are involved in all areas. So yes, we definitely think that's important to do. And planning is a process. It's not, okay, we're going to meet and we're done, right? It's an ongoing process because things change. Housing needs change. Right now housing is kind of crazy. We have beneficiaries that are really having a hard time finding housing. So people move. Maybe the housing that they have is no longer appropriate. We can step in and help with that. Starting and talking about the financial and estate planning, hiring an attorney like Emily that can help you put a plan together with your estate, can help create special needs trust, or maybe, she might say a pooled trust might be a better option. But getting all of those people together, whether it's who's going to be the trustee, who's going to be your attorney, whoever your financial planner is, and then other siblings or family support members, is important. So start planning as soon as you can. The younger you are, the better. Because when you're 80, it's kind of hard to go back and say, gee, I wish I would have done something differently. So, and planning leaves everything to chance in a world where there are no guarantees. And, like I said, housing and, the services are not what they used to be. And it's not easy right now. So getting a plan in place and making sure that everybody knows what's going on is really important. So how to start creating a plan. The first thing we recommend is really for the parents to sit down and write out their personal goals. What are the things that they want to accomplish? What do they think that they want to accomplish for their loved one with a disability? So that's a really good place to start. And then, I have to move this thing so I can see this. Then set goals for the person that you're creating a life plan for. Working with them, the objective is always to maintain their quality of life. If they live with mom and dad, or if they live in a group home, if mom and dad pass or, go on an extended vacation, which we've had family members do, you want their quality of life to remain the same. You don't want all of a sudden there to be a big change, because that creates a lot of heartache for everybody. You want them to be dependent on others, but as independent as possible. So sometimes, we have beneficiaries who are super independent. All they need is to call us if they need, bills paid, or if they need some support. And then we have others that we have to check in all the time, that we have caregivers or social workers that go out and are more involved in their lives. So it's whatever works best. There's no set way of doing things. It's different for every family. So your wish list for future care and quality of life. So these are some of the things that are really important to start thinking about. Where is the beneficiary going to live? You want it to be safe. Oftentimes, as I mentioned earlier, the disabled individual live with parents. And while that seems like a great idea, we always say, well, what's going to happen when mom and dad pass? Then where are they going to live? And if they've never lived anywhere else, that creates a lot of emotional trauma for them. So we always recommend practicing so that they're living somewhere else, and maybe they come home on weekends. But then that gives them the opportunity to have a little bit of independence and get to know, what else is out there, and get to know other people, and, get a comfort level of not living at home. Because if we're the ones who have to say, gosh, okay, you've lived in this house your whole life, now you have to move to a group home and we're going to sell this house, that's really a hard thing for us, and it's very hard for the beneficiary. And then having reliable and compassionate caregivers. Well, that could, again, be part of a group home. It could be an organization like ours that is providing all of those wraparound services, making sure that there's adequate financial resources. People always say, well, how much money should we save? Well, I always say, think about how much you spend on the beneficiary monthly, then annually, and then times their lifetime. So, it can be a lot more than you think. And this is always kind of a delicate situation, but oftentimes people will say, well, I have 3 children, so I'm going to divide everything 3 ways. And I just encourage families to really look at, are the other 2 able to, make an income, and maybe the disabled beneficiary isn't. So you might want to, consider that, and maybe leaving those siblings as remainder beneficiaries. So just some things to think about. Making sure that they have a good doctor and dental care. Are they going to need dental work in the future? Friends, making sure that they have that support system. Healthy diet, meaningful daytime activities. If they we have beneficiaries that, want to go to church every Sunday, and it was really important to the parents, so we Uber them to church every Sunday. And just making sure that you make your wishes known on things like this. Daily recreational activities are the things that they like to do. Who are the relatives and the people that are important in their life? Do they need spending money? What does some spending and shopping money look like? What holidays are important, based on, whatever religious preferences. Is there certain holidays that are important, and birthday celebrations? What do they like to do for entertainment? And are they going to be taking vacations? We have, beneficiaries that take vacations, that have caregivers. Trust can pay for that. Entertainment, we have social workers that go take some of our beneficiaries to movies on occasion, so that they can have kind of that socialization. So thinking about all of these things and putting them in a plan is really important. So also what goes into a plan? Well, are they going to be able to work? My sister has a disability. She works at a nursery and she waters the plants, and she loves it. She works a couple days a week, gives her some independence. She wouldn't be able to run the cash register, but she can water the plants, and she really likes that. So, is there some type of job they could have? What type of home will they live in? Again, the financial piece, friends and family, community supports, entertainment. So again, just some things to think about. So some of the got ahead of myself here. So some of the planning elements, a plan to bring all of the services together at the appropriate time in your loved one's life. We do encourage that while mom and dad are still living. It's really important to really practice what's going on so that the organization like ours or other family members really understand what's important in your loved one's life and what services need to be put together to make sure that they can continue to live the quality of life that they do. The creation of assets by the family and extended family. Oftentimes once a trust is set up, a third party, like especially in our pooled trusts, we have other family members. So say mom and dad set up a third party pooled trust for their loved one, and maybe Aunt Sally doesn't have any children and she wants to leave some money for Susie as well. So any third party then can also leave money. I know for my sister, I think everybody in the family has left something for her, so she'll always be taken care of. But it's just nice that other people can, also make a contribution if they want to. And then identifying the organizations and the individuals to carry out that plan. It could be a nonprofit organization like ours. It could be a fiduciary, an individual. It could be a bank. It could be siblings. So just making sure that you're identifying who the trustee is going to be and what other services that need to be in place are set up. And then special instructions for future caregivers. We ask our families to write letters of intent so that we know what type of life they want their beneficiary to live. And oftentimes, the family, that'll change. So they'll update the information and send it to us, hopefully on an annual basis. Sometimes it's every couple of years. We have one mom that every 3 months we get, she changes her mind on something, and, she's wonderful and we have a great relationship with her. And that's what we're here for. So making sure that everybody has the adequate information, who the doctors are, who the important people in that individual's life is, personal reflections and instructions. Is it really important that we celebrate birthdays? Maybe birthdays are a huge thing in the family. So we might want to, do a little extra, not just a card in the mail, but maybe it's a social worker taking them out to lunch on their birthday because that's what mom and dad used to do. Again, religious and holiday celebrations, if those are important, and really thinking about burial information. That's a really important one. Talking about that before it happens so that everybody is on the same page. So other questions to think about. Where will your loved one live? Like we talked about earlier, oftentimes they're living with mom and dad, but what happens when mom and dad aren't there? So maybe making a change with that and practicing is really important. And then who will look after your loved one when you're gone? Again, just is it going to be an organization? Is it going to be a fiduciary? Is it family members? Is it a combination of, a fiduciary and family members? What does that look like? And how much money will be needed to care for your loved one in the future? I think that's one of the biggest things that people don't really think about, how much it's going to cost. They'll put a little money away, but they're not really thinking about how long that beneficiary is going to live. What type of lifestyle do you want them to have? And who in the family can help? Unfortunately, especially with some of our beneficiaries with mental illness, other family members, they don't want to be involved. It's relationships are strained. We're all they have. And we specialize in that area, not always easy, but we're always there to help them however we need to. And like I said, sometimes it's bailing them out of jail or buying a new house or moving them or calling the crises team if we see that they're decompensating. We've done everything. And how does your family fit in? That's just another important piece, kind of what we were talking about. Not family doesn't always fit in. So if there is family that fits in, what's normal in the family? Going back to like birthdays, is it important to always celebrate? We work with lots of family members, and some are super involved and they're part of our team, and sometimes they just want to know, it's hands off and they just want to know what's going on. So really talking to the family and making sure that they understand what their roles and responsibilities are. And the other thing, it's kind of a delicate subject, but oftentimes families will say, oh, well, her sister is going to become the trustee. And the sister's like, oh, tells the parents that's what they want to do. And then mom and dad pass away. And then she's like, I don't want to do this. I never wanted to do it. I just said it to make mom and dad happy, but we want you to do it. And so oftentimes we become successor trustee. And so I think it's important to really understand being a trustee is a difficult role with the public benefits, the do's and don'ts. What can you not pay for on public benefits? We've gotten trusts where a sibling was the trustee and they just gave the beneficiary cash, and now they've lost some of their benefits, or they've lost a part of their benefit and they didn't know. But it's a big responsibility, and not all, the children. I know for me, I feel obligated, right, for my sister. I want to help, but it's a big job, and it also hurts my relationship. I'm not the trustee of my sister's trust, because she would hate me if I was the one telling her what she could and couldn't do. We already have our own, sibling rivalry a little bit. With she's always mad at me for something, but I definitely would not want to be the trustee and be the one overseeing her money. I just want to be her sister. I want to go have fun with her and do things, and I don't want to be the one telling her what to do. And a lot of the siblings feel that way, but they also don't want to, let the parents down. So really being able to have honest conversations about whether or not that is something, taking on the role of a trustee is something that the other siblings should be burdened with. So what are your family's future responsibilities? Instead of being the trustee, maybe the siblings are the ones who do some of these. Maybe they go visit, maybe they send cards and letters in the mail. Not always, they don't always live in town. So, maybe it's phone calls, invitations to visit. Like I said, with my sister, we go to dinner, we'll go to movies, we just have fun together. And that's the role that I want to play with her. Vital questions. Who will be there to carry out your wishes? So all of this is kind of coming back around is, you're getting this plan together. You're putting all this information down, and now what are you going to do with it? Who is going to be there to implement it? There's organizations like ours that are nonprofits that can provide these services. There's fiduciaries out there that can do this. If it's a family member, they need to understand what responsibilities they're going to have, what you want, what your wishes are, and what they need to do to implement the plan. So, if it's becoming the trustee, what does that look like? And then making sure, because you have the information, making sure that you're communicating this information in a plan so that everybody knows what happens, or is going to happen for the beneficiary. Oftentimes, parents, they wait to the last minute, and they're in their 80s and maybe they're a little forgetful and they don't remember things. And so a lot of pieces might be missing in the plan. So starting this as soon as you can is just really important, and making sure that you're really communicating the information, because only you know the beneficiary, and creating those relationships is really important. Right. I mean, these are who will carry out the wishes. Is it a spouse? Is it siblings, relatives, a service organization, an attorney, friends? Who's going to be the one to create this or to carry out the wishes? So that means who will be around when you're gone, who knows and understands your loved one, who knows and understands the service system, and who know and understands how to advocate. And oftentimes it's not just one person, kind of going back to what I talked about earlier. It's a team of people. It's an Emily, it's an organization like ours. It's, their care management or their DDD, care manager. It's doctors, it's therapists. There's a whole team of people, and making sure that everybody's on the same page and we all know what roles that we play is important. this is kind of a little redundant, that you do need to pass it on. So,
I think the other thing is you sort of were talking about, Liz, is that people need to be realistic, right? So you might think that your other child is going to be willing, able to step in, that they're going to have the time and the energy, but you really have to think about, well, how much time is what I do for this person? How much time does that take? How many people do I have to follow up with? You know, how many times do I have to figure out that we have to move the person because the housing isn't working out anymore? And then be realistic when you're talking, if you're going to have individuals named, be realistic about, these are the expectations. Is this something that you are going to feel comfortable with? And so I know when we do estate planning, you know, I always say, well, who's next in line? So if that doesn't work out, who's next in line? And particularly the younger the beneficiary or the more difficult the behaviors, having an institution kind of as the backup, so that if the family determines, oh, that was way more than I ever anticipated, you know that there's going to be that organization that's still around and that will have the patience to deal with your loved one. So I think, as you said, it's important to figure out the who and the how much are they really going to do when the rubber meets the road.
right. And sometimes it's a group effort. I mean, we have siblings that'll say, I don't want to be the trustee, but I want to be involved. And so we take over those, the trustee responsibilities. And then we work with the sibling. And sometimes she'll do stuff and she'll call us and say, gosh, Susie has a doctor's appointment. Can you take her? And we step in and we can do as much or as little as needed. So, the sibling is able to help and feels good about helping, but maybe the full responsibility of it isn't on them. So we can share that burden and that duty to make sure that the beneficiary is, living the best life possible. We have some life planning workbooks. There's a lot out there also that you can pull up, but if anyone's interested, I'd be happy to mail you one. We're part of a national alliance. It's called the National Plan Alliance, and there's organizations in ours in most states. And we put together this workbook. So it's planning for the future. And again, I'd be happy to share this with anybody if they're interested. So collecting the information, writing it down, creating a notebook with all of this stuff in it is really important. Keeping it in one place. The experts, so there's the attorney like Emily, financial planners, providers, all are the experts. We all come together to help you create this plan. And of course, it's important to include your loved one when appropriate. They might not be involved in all of the planning, the financial, but really, understanding what they want and including them, introducing them to whoever is going to be the trustee, whether it's an organization like ours or another fiduciary or a bank, making sure that they're comfortable and that they're able to ask questions and that they know that a plan is getting being created, and letting them be part of that plan. Like I said, we meet with our families that, mom and dad are still young. They're in their, 50s, 60s, and, it might be 20 or 30 years before something happens and we step in, but we still meet with them. We still know the beneficiary because you never know, right? You never know what's going to happen in this world. So just creating that team, and even if it's every 3 years that you meet and you reevaluate, you make sure your information is important. Making sure if you have life insurance that, whoever is going to be the successor trustee, they know what's going to the beneficiary. We've had beneficiaries where like 6 years after mom and dad passed, we get a phone call from someone saying, oh yeah, there's a life insurance policy that, apparently you're named as the beneficiary, or the trust is named as beneficiary, but we didn't know, right? Because no one told us. They didn't give us a list of assets that were coming over to the trust. And so, and it was a lot of money that came over, and it was like 5 years after mom and dad passed away. So making sure that whoever is your point person, they know what the investments are. They know what's being left to the trust. They have a copy of the most recent documents, and the letter of intent that you're going to write. So creating the plan of care, you have the plan, you have the monitor. So the plan is the book that you're going to put together. The monitor is the trustee. or whoever is going to be the, overseeing all of this. And then you have the resources, which are the financial piece. So all three pieces are really important. You have to have the plan, you have to have who's going to implement the plan, and you have to have the resources that will support your plan. And again, we have these workbooks. That's actually a picture of one. And the rewards of planning is peace of mind. One of my favorite parts of meeting with our families is they'll always give me a hug after and say, I feel so much better. We have a plan, we know what we're gonna do. I'm not stressing anymore. We know Susie's gonna be okay. And it really does give you peace of mind to know that there is, a plan that's gonna be implemented, and that the beneficiary knows that there's a plan of being, that's going to get implemented. So it's not only peace of mind for you, but it's peace of mind for the beneficiary, because they know, gosh, if mom and dad pass away, Plan of Arizona or so-and-so is going to be who I call. And I've already met them and I know them, and things will be okay. So that is the end of my presentation. I guess that went a little faster than I thought, but does anyone have questions?
Yeah, no, your presentation was perfect, right on target.
Okay.
I think maybe a general question is, you've talked a little bit about if Plan of Arizona is the trustee, but family members want to be involved. There's that line between not wanting to give out information that is sort of important for you guys to hold on to in a confidential manner, but still allow people to be involved. So kind of what sort of experiences have you had when family wants to do something, but they definitely don't want to be the trustee?
Yeah. So, do you mean as far as like sharing information? Yeah. So we run into that a lot where, we even have a situation with a mom now. The mom and dad were divorced. The dad passed away and left money to two sons. And now mom's calling and she wants to know what's going on. And we can't, we can share that generally things are okay, but we can't give out specific details because the individuals are adults and they don't want the information shared. So it's a fine line. We have letters of release of informations that we can have signed from the beneficiary. And sometimes the beneficiary is totally fine with that. And it's something that we do between us and family members. And we also have to do it with any service organizations we work with. It has to be signed on both sides. So we have one of those in place. And if the beneficiary signs it, great. It makes it really easy for us to talk about things. Otherwise, we can hear information, but we have to be careful about what we can say back if the beneficiary doesn't want family involved. So family can always say, hey, I just saw Susie, she is decompensating, I'm really concerned about her, and we'll take it from there. So we will get involved then at that point and call the crises team or go, do what we need to do. So it's a little tricky, but oftentimes, especially if siblings are close, they sign the release and we're fine. And then we can share information. But we can still work with the family members, as long as we're not talking about personal information. There's no reason why we can't talk about, scheduling doctor's appointments or, housing issues if there are things, as long as it's not, something that's confidential. We had one beneficiary that had a boyfriend and she didn't want her mom to know. She's in her 30s, and it was a tough situation. So, we just said we can't really share that. But, So yeah, we deal with stuff like that.
So another question was whether if you're trustee, would you be co-trustee with a family member, or if Plan of Arizona is the trustee, you would not be co-trustee with another individual?
We would be open to being co-trustee. I don't think we're co-trustee with anyone right now. Typically they, because we would have to really spell out what the duties are. And we'd definitely be open to it. Who is responsible for what? Typically what ends up happening is we're responsible for everything, so that there's not really a point in being a co-trustee with someone, because they can still be involved as much or as little as they want. But if someone, specifically wanted us to be co-trustee and they were assuming some responsibility, then we would be open to that. And we would just, again, define, who is responsible for what, and we would put it into a legal document.
Great. So two things. One, I wonder if you could go back to your first slide so we could just have that up for a little bit of
Sure.
time so people would have your contact information. And then I had another question for you.
Easier way to do this, but
that works.
yeah, okay.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much. So another question is, are you only in Arizona, or do you oversee beneficiaries who are in other states?
So we're state specific.
Specific.
Arizona specific. Yes, it's a tongue twister today. But as I mentioned, there are the National Plan Alliance. We have a website, and it will show you other states where there's organizations just like ours. I don't know if there's 30 or 40 of the states. Some of them do more than one state, and I'm happy to help people navigate that if they want. But we have become trustee of third-party trusts where we have a beneficiary, and all depends on their public benefits too, that have moved out of state, and then we just partner with one of the other organizations. So we stay on as trustee, but if they need any kind of caregiving, then we can partner with other organizations. We have one of my colleagues in Colorado, we service some of her beneficiaries here, and we just bill them. And, so we're all a close group. I'm on the national board. So there are organizations just like ours in many of the states, and they provide the same. One of the requirements to be part of the national alliances is that they provide not only the trustee services, but they also provide, we call it boots on the ground, where there's that wraparound services with social workers and stuff. So most of them operate very similar to us.
And if people have questions about the fee structure, then they can just call or send an email to the number that's on the screen, right?
Yes, and you can also look at our website because all of our documents are on there.
Okay, terrific. Well, that's great.
And I'm happy to meet with anybody. If there's no charge to meet with me. I can send you caregiving books. I'm happy to meet for coffee or just talk on the phone if you have questions. Creating these plans are complicated. They take time. So I'm just, happy to help however I can to make sure you get off to a good start with this.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Liz, as always, for donating your time and to helping people understand that there are lots of options out there in terms of who the trustee can be and what services are available and how that can all be structured. And to be clear, so somebody asked, do we work together or exclusive separately? So I'm an attorney in my own firm, and Liz is the executive director of Plan of Arizona. There are just times when she might need some legal advice, and there are times when we have clients who want to use Plan of Arizona and they have questions, so we refer them to Liz if we think that might be a fit that works for them. So we don't work for each other, and we're in two separate entities. So thank you for asking that question. So thank you all so much. Again, my name is Emily Kile, and we look forward to hearing from you. And the presentation is recorded, so if you want to listen to it again, it'll be up on our YouTube channel and our website. So thank you so much, Liz. I hope everybody has a great rest of the week, and appreciate you attending. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Thanks, Emily.